AI is actually creating more opportunities and jobs than it is destroying by far. And we see this, across segments of our platform, which I'm happy to unpack.
Hello, and welcome to AI Curious. My name is Jeff Wilser. I'm a journalist, I'm a human, and I am curious about AI. And one of the most burning questions of AI is, of course, how will it impact jobs? How will it impact the economy? Now, there are many theories, there are many concerns, there are many takes. There are not, however, many people who have a clear, objective look at how AI is actually impacting the job landscape. This is what makes today's guest so interesting, or rather one of many things that makes her so interesting. I am delighted to welcome to the show Hayden Brown, the CEO of Upwork. Now, Upwork, of course, is a massive company that connects freelancers to jobs. And in the past year, the company has been on a tear. At the time of this recording, the market cap is over $2.8 billion, and their stock price has more than doubled since October 2024. One reason for the company's success, according to many business analysts, is how they've aggressively leaned into AI. As Hayden breaks down in our conversation, Upwork didn't just layer in some AI to their existing workflows, or as Hayden puts it, they didn't use AI pixie dust. They really did the hard work to redesign how the entire company operates. And in this conversation, we go pretty deep on how Hayden pulled this off. It's a pretty incredible case study, and it's, in a way, excellent free consulting for any business leader. And then there is this. Because Upwork is this global platform for jobs and gigs and freelancers, Hayden has unique visibility into how job and freelance gig openings have changed. How has it shifted? So to pull back the curtain a bit, I met Hayden in person in Lisbon at Web Summit a couple months ago. I interviewed her on the AI stage, and in the speaker's lounge beforehand, we were chatting. She essentially told me that much of the mainstream narrative on AI in the job market, and I'm paraphrasing here, is dead wrong. People are just getting it wrong. So on stage at Web Summit, we got into this for a bit, but you know how conferences go. The panels are short, the conversations are short. So I knew we needed to go deeper to get into the weeds and the nuance. So I was thrilled that she could join us here on AI Curious to really unpack what she has seen from Upwork's vantage points. And the headline is that, so far as Upwork can tell, AI is creating more opportunities, not less. New roles, more fractional roles. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all blue sky and cotton candy, and Hayden has plenty of sober and real-world thoughts about the need for reskilling and upskilling. But I think this is a refreshing perspective that doesn't fall into the usual binary trap of tech optimism or doomerism. We cover a ton of ground in this conversation, including Hayden's advice on how to navigate your career in this AI landscape, advice for leaders on implementing AI, and her thoughts on what the future of work will look like. So with that, please enjoy my conversation with Hayden Brown, the CEO of Upwork. Hayden, welcome to AI Curious.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
So let's start with a bit of your own background and how you came to lead Upwork, and then kind of shift into how AI strategy is really helping rocket you guys' recent growth.
My background is a little unusual. People always do a double take when they ask where I grew up, and my answer is Kathmandu, Nepal. Before that, I was actually from small town Amesbury, Massachusetts, and my parents did international development work, and that's how we ended up moving overseas. I mean, they are like icons to me, Jeff. These people, my parents specifically, they spent their lives, dedicating themselves to making other people's lives better. And they really infused in me a lesson that it's worthwhile to do that, to spend your life kind of helping other people. And so I had the amazing opportunity to live overseas as a kid in Nepal. My parents were there for 9 years. And that really shaped my upbringing in terms of seeing the world from kind of a non-American point of view. I mean, kind of, stepping out of the US lens and seeing how other people are living, seeing the talent, the opportunities that were or were not available to folks in a place like Nepal. And really, if you've kind of followed that through line all the way to Upwork and where I joined this business in 2011, I was really motivated to work at a company that was bringing opportunity to people all over the world who have incredible skills, college, graduate degrees, but they are not in an economy like ours, and they cannot necessarily access the types of opportunities in their local market. And at the same time, we're obviously connecting them to employers who are looking for this great talent and may not have it in their backyard either. And so really, our platform making that match, helping both sides, creating opportunity for both businesses and talent. It really, I think, traces back to some of those childhood experiences I had.
To that point, Hayden, can you give us a sense of scale and scope? Give us a sense of kind of the sprawl of where you are currently, whatever number you see fit.
So our business processes about $4 billion of client spend every year, passing to talent that's in 180 countries or more globally. And our scope is really all of knowledge work. We have more than 130 categories of work on the platform, everything from designing creative services to web and technical development, mobile app development. Now, AI, of course, is a huge area on our platform in terms of AI agent development, AI systems design. But really, we see it all. We see all flavors of knowledge work and these workers globally and businesses globally that are moving at the pace of light, really trying to evolve their businesses and evolve their skill sets. So we have an incredible vantage point on what is actually a huge part of the economy. In the US alone, freelancing is a $1.5 trillion contributor. About a quarter of Americans freelance, 28% in our study from last year. And so, and that's freelance knowledge workers specifically. So this is a huge part of the economy. It moves really fast. We really see on our platform a little bit of a canary in the coal mine effect, where we see trends evolving and things emerging kind of before they ripple through to the economy as a whole, which gives us a very exciting vantage point on how work is today and how it's changing for tomorrow.
No, I'm super excited to dive into what you're seeing in a moment. I also, though, I think before we go there, I think it's worth noting that you guys have in a pretty forward-thinking way, my understanding is you have injected AI into your own workflows and operations and strategy. And if that's not the case, fact check me, let me know if I'm wrong on this, but talk a bit about how you've used AI at Upwork. What are kind of the main ways that you've seen real wins, real ROI with AI solutions in your own company?
Yeah, we've definitely gone through a crawl, walk, run on this topic. We started a couple years ago, kind of dabbling in different areas and kind of experimenting with changing workflows in various parts of the business. And we quickly realized we had to make this much more programmatic. We couldn't just, leave it to people to kind of figure it out on their own. We established an AI, actually monthly business review, and had every department to come in with a 2-year vision for where they thought they would be in 2 years from now using the tools and technology that are available. Now, of course, that's going to keep changing, but at least it gave every leader a chance to kind of put a stake in the ground. Where will my business be in 2 years using this technology? And then we worked back from that and have monthly check-ins to kind of evaluate what's working, share lessons learned, change company processes. If it's too hard to adopt a tool or too hard to integrate something, we figure that out pretty quickly. The places where we're having the most success.
Wait, sorry, before to jump in, I love that philosophy. Similar to what I encourage leaders to do as well when I talk to companies about AI strategy. It's like, no, start a year out, 2 years out, then work backwards. What are some, when you first started doing that, what were some 2-year visions that like blew your mind? You're like, oh my God, I hadn't thought of that. That's interesting scenario. What are some kind of possibilities you guys explored that really opened your eyes of what AI could do for you guys?
I mean, some of the most exciting ones that we started with were in marketing and in product and engineering. Marketing, the team was looking at kind of our full stack marketing tools and how we run campaigns, how we develop creative, how many tests we run at once, how we segment audiences. I mean, if you think about all of those questions that a marketing team is constantly answering and then using to, deploy different types of work, this team had an idea about how we could do all of that with like a connected tool chain around AI and really create these like loops of automation, including sensing where in the market are there conversations happening where Upwork is relevant, where we have talent that can contribute to a problem or a trend, and how do we actually in real time use AI to detect that that's happening, bring it in, create content, whether it's a landing page or a campaign, and then get that back out in a matter of hours. So, they were thinking about kind of moving at a different pace and putting together, pieces of a marketing stack that really, hadn't changed that much in the last decade, but now was looking at like massive change top to bottom. So that was very exciting. Another area was obviously product and engineering, which is close to my heart as someone who, ran our product teams for many years. I think this is where we're seeing a massive change in the vision around People talk in tech a lot about the PM to engineering to design ratio. One product manager might have a team of 7 to 12 engineers and, a designer that's working with them. What our team was talking about was a radically different approach where it was basically a ratio of one. One
Wow.
person who could do engineering, could do design, could do coding, could do customer requirements, like all of those things wrapped into one, but powered by the tools that were starting to come into the market at that time. And now even just, 1 or 2 years later have progressed massively. So these are places where our vision was really about changing the workflow, changing what the resourcing looked like, changing the capability and leverage that individuals in those departments would have. And we're definitely down that path now, since we started with those visioning statements. A lot more has changed in the technology, a lot more has changed in terms of what's possible, but we are really seeing a lot of benefits from, these new technologies.
Can I ask, one thing I've found is that often successful AI adoption is less about the tech and more about the culture and the people and the messaging. So talk a bit about how you approach this. As a CEO, how did you kind of cultivate this exploration mindset, this kind of, hey, we're going to try these different things without it being antagonistic or without kind of inflaming understandable AI anxiety? And of course, we'll get into the whole job impact in a bit, but I think it's very natural for most employees to hear AI and worry about, is my job safe, right? So you architected this pretty massive scope of overhauling and reimagining workflows in Upwork. How did you do that? And what kind of steps did you take to ensure this would be embraced by different levels of leadership and management down to the kind of the frontline worker, so to speak, and not be resisted?
I knew from day one, Jeff, that the AI agenda for Upwork had to be my agenda. Like those two things had to be one and the same. And that goes back to January, right after ChatGPT had launched. We came into our executive team meeting that 5 weeks after that technology was live or 6 weeks after that technology was live, and had a big debate as a team around, do we change our roadmap for this year now that we've seen ChatGPT? And there was a lot of smart people in the room who were saying, look, let's just wait. Let's see what happens. We'll figure this out over time. Let's see what bigger companies do. And I felt very strongly the opposite. I knew for what we do and how we lead our part of the market, we had to lead here and we had to dive in and learn firsthand what these tools are capable of and what their limitations were. We couldn't just watch others. So I made that commitment very early on. We changed our product roadmap as a result of that and really started to do work with an isolated team, reinventing our product platform with the idea of AI. But all of that work, Jeff, taught me that my agenda and the AI agenda for the business had to be the same. And I had to show up every single week. We have a weekly all hands meeting that's optional for employees. And every week coming to that meeting with my own message for the company around how exciting this technology is. It's not threatening you or your jobs. We are celebrating the people in the business who are embracing it and are innovating, including people in very unexpected corners of the company who are coming forward with great ideas because they were so passionate about what this technology could do. So showcasing that this is something for everyone. It's not just the engineering teams. It's not just someone in a specific department or initiative. We can all learn and grow together and really kind of reduce people's fear, because we talked a lot about mistakes too. We talked about, we tried this, it didn't work. Yeah. This was a failure, but then we regrouped. So I think bringing that as a kind of priority number one conversation with the business and having peer-to-peer learning constantly in places that were very visible and very supported. And then following it up with things like our AI MBR, where we had room for people to come up with their own vision and goals and hold ourselves accountable to that and share. I think all of those things kind of stack together to make this, a company that's really embraced AI in every way.
I love that high-level vision you shared. Can you kind of give some more specifics and concrete examples of a product you've created, or maybe some hyper-specific way that you're doing something now that was not possible before, or this is faster, or take less resources? What are some kind of wins you've seen so far with AI?
Yeah. So, this was a great experience for us because, what inspired me, Jeff, was I heard a story of two founders in Germany who had just started a new company, a year before ChatGPT arrived. And they decided to have one founder just keep running the current business and one founder go offsite and reimagine the business, just focusing on AI as the solution set. So
it's almost a founder A/B test.
Yes,
in a way.
100%, 100%. And I didn't have like another, co-CEO
Right.
here at Upwork to split that responsibility with, but we do have an incredible team, and we just dedicated like a small tiger team to developing a new vision for the business. And the thing that was fascinating about that, they thought, we know the customer problems, we know everything customers are trying to do, but how would we solve them differently using AI? That was the charter for that team. They came back to me, Jeff, with a prototype of what a new Upwork experience could look like that literally had like tears coming out of my eyes because I was so moved by how they had reimagined something that was fundamental to our platform at the time, but they had thought about it completely differently. And I maybe won't bore your listeners with like all of the details there, but they had kind of reversed our problem statement and put into the experience this idea of how can an AI agent help customers before they even know who to hire or what freelancer to work with or how to describe their job. How can the AI agent kind of unpack and enable a customer to be successful in a domain they may not know a lot about, and they may not know how to hire, and they may not have all these details because they're a founder or a business manager, maybe in a different domain. So they solved that problem. And now if you fast forward, 2+ years later, our product actually has an amazing AI agent, Uma, who we have progressively launched into the product at key points. Uma is now writing 70% of new client job posts on behalf of customers. We're super powering how customers can come in and use our data through Uma to plan projects and have Uma help actually project manage front to back an entire effort. So that idea really started with that effort. And now, pieces of it are live today, and more of those kind of components are coming into our product in 2026. So we're really changing the experience as a result.
That's so interesting. I'm sure you've seen the research out there that most companies, the MIT study from last year, that the majority of companies that are trying to inject AI agentic solutions are failing. I believe the stat was 90+%. I personally think that study is often taken out of context and misquoted, but putting it aside, there's no question many companies are struggling to actually make agents work. You guys have got Uma agents to work. So what do you think are companies, what's separating what you guys have done to actually roll out this agentic solution from the companies that are really struggling to get something off the ground?
See, that the secret sauce for us has been reinventing, not retrofitting. And I think there's a common trap where businesses think, well, let me just add some AI into my current solution, sprinkle some AI fairy dust on this part of my problem, and hopefully things will get better. Yes, you can see like very small gains kind of at best when you do that. But what we discovered is we had to rethink the entire user experience that put AI into the experience in a way that made sense, that was centered in the experience, not just some, clippy type chat experience off on the side. And once we infused AI into that experience, it just changed how customers could get value out of it. And I think that our willingness to kind of really go deep and reinvent was important. I think the other piece, when you mentioned that MIT study, and I talk to CEOs and other leaders about this all the time, is a lot of companies thought they could just add AI to a workflow and get value without thinking about the humans working in that area and working alongside those AI tools. Now there's an insight that more and more companies are having that we have fortunately been able to benefit for quite some time, which is you have to change the people, not just the technology. You have to give them new skills. You have to redefine their jobs. You have to change their roles. When you look at the talent side in conjunction with AI, then you get the real benefits. But if you're just trying to slap AI into an accounting team or a forecasting effort or even an engineering team, you need to go further in terms of really thinking about the whole system and the people in that system being the right ones.
Hayden, this is amazing. It also sounds, frankly, really, really hard. Basically, you if I hear you right, what you guys did was a complete reevaluation of your entire strategy, all of your workflows, going back to first principles across every dimension of the company. That is a lot of work that most companies simply don't want to do, or they want to, but they don't feel like the bandwidth to do. So how did you think about the investment that would take and how much time to give it? Like, I'm really curious. Did you say, okay, everyone, you're going to spend 2 hours a day on this, or what did you do to kind of like carve out the bandwidth to make it happen? That is a non-trivial exercise for the entire company.
Like most things, I think it started with our culture and kind of setting the goals because, we could have just said, yeah, everyone spent 2 hours on AI training. I don't think that would have worked. What we actually did was we've spent the last 3 years really fundamentally reinventing the business. And we knew that was what we needed to do. I think this technology made it obvious that for us to be relevant in the next chapter, we had to embrace AI deeply and understand what it meant for our customers, for our business. But that did mean reinvention. So we actually told the company, look, we are reinventing. We're going back to startup mode. Yes, we're a public company. Yes, we're the market leader in our space, but this is time to be a startup again. And we gave everyone permission to move faster, to try things and fail, to do a lot more of the work that startups typically are so good at because they're so nimble and they're able to, assemble, reassemble teams as needed, shut down efforts that aren't working, spin up the new ones. They move fast at that. And we knew that's what we needed to do too. So with that cultural layer and that permission and mandate really to our entire team, then we had these specific goals around our product and our operations, and we achieved those. But I think, again, it started with the mindset of the business saying, look, we are going to move at the speed of a startup and the scale of a market leader. That's our competitive advantage at this moment. We can put those things together in a way few companies can. And I think that's what gave us so much success for the last 3 years and really coming to 2026 with the foundations that we wanted on technology, on people, on product, et cetera.
I love it. Let's shift now to, as you mentioned, your unique vantage point of how the job landscape is changing. And just kind of underscore this point, as we mentioned before we started recording, I mentioned, there's so many companies, thousands of companies that see the job world from their perspective of, okay, we know how many job openings we have job recs we see how our numbers are going up or down. You guys, you could argue you have better visibility than even like the census of what's actually happening in the workforce. So let's start at a high level. How would you say you've seen the job landscape shift in the past few years as a result of AI?
So you're right, Jeff, that we have a very unique vantage point. And I like to think of it as like, you can look at ADP data for payroll information, and then you can look at Upwork for everything else that's going on in the knowledge work economy, which is pretty powerful because ADP doesn't capture anything that's happening in freelance work. It's just full-time work. So we look at what's happening in the freelance economy across all of these, types of knowledge work. I'd say the last few years have been interesting in that macro has definitely played a bigger role than AI in terms of the softness that the labor market has seen. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, sluggish hiring. That is a reality. Businesses have pulled back in the post-COVID economy around how much hiring they're doing. But the good news is where that slowness is, it's actually not because of AI. I think there's a misattribution happening a lot of the time where people say, look, employers aren't hiring. It must be that they're using AI instead. That is actually broadly not a trend that we're seeing yet. We're actually seeing AI is creating more job opportunities. Employers are actually coming into the market with their limited resources in some cases, but looking to hire more individuals who have AI skills or are basically AI equipped across whatever domain they are an expert in. And that is definitely an emerging trend. But the good news is AI is actually creating more opportunities and jobs than it is destroying by far. And we see this across segments of our platform, which happy to unpack.
Yeah, can you, that definitely flies in the face of a lot of the conventional narratives out there, right? You see the occasional data point that company X is either going to lay off 5,000 people, or maybe they're going to still there's natural attrition. They're not going to replace them using AI. So you kind of only see the negative stories where jobs are lost. Help connect the dots here of how both things could be true. How you occasionally see jobs being lost, but you're saying actually there's more opportunities. What are some examples and kind of what industries or what type of jobs are you seeing that at?
Yeah, let's peel that back. So we see two interesting trends around the part of the market that we focus on. One is the fractionalization of work. This is an emerging thing that started happening, I'd say, more visibly last year, where traditional full-time jobs were starting to be broken apart, or kind of the parts of those jobs were, part of it was getting done by AI. And then there's a residual amount of work that still has to be done by a human, but it doesn't look like the full-time job of the past. And more of those opportunities are actually coming now into the freelance economy, where there is a plethora of flexible and contingent freelance workers who are now taking on those pieces of work that they don't look like the traditional full-time job. So that is definitely one thematic that is starting to emerge. The other one is a lot of companies, as they're tackling these AI projects and their AI ambitions, they don't have the people in their team to do that work. Either because of capacity, like people are just busy running the existing business and executing things, or because of skills, and they don't have, the specific skills needed. So that's creating net new work opportunities where they're trying to build something out. They come into a place like Upwork, they need to assemble a team or bring in experts to do that work, and then they build from there. And a great example of this is a company like Grammarly. Grammarly was building an AI writing assistant for their customers. They realized it wasn't just the AI tool that could deliver the value. They actually needed human editors and writers working alongside the AI system to deliver that product. So now they have hundreds of writers and editors working, alongside AI in a fractional freelance capacity. And that's just net new work that wasn't happening before because of this new product that they launched. So we're seeing both of those trends, which I think are why we're going to see over the next few years a shift actually from full-time work to freelance work accelerating, because the economy is going to keep changing, the nature of work is going to keep changing, and freelance and flexible work is actually better suited to a lot of the work that's being created because of these AI implementations.
Are you seeing an influx of new AI-esque roles? Like a few years ago, it was almost a joke. You're seeing it like prompt engineers. Every company, hire prompt engineers. Like, have you seen that fad come and go? And what other types of new AI roles are out there that 5 years ago no one had even heard of?
So the AI category in our platform is about $300 million of spend as of last year, and it's growing at about 53% year over year. So it's a fast-growing category. You're right. Things like prompt engineering, showed up a few years ago more prominently, and actually they're still enduring. But what is changing is businesses are getting more sophisticated about what they're looking for. Because to your example, everyone thought it was a prompt engineer. Now they're realizing, okay, actually I need something else or something more, something different. And the requirements are getting more specific. Specifically, people are looking for hiring folks who have technical skills, but also have specific human skills like problem solving, judgment, creativity, the ability to put systems together. I was literally reading a client job description this morning. They were like, I don't want just a prompt engineer. I want someone who can design a system and get these AI systems talking to each other.
Yeah.
And it's really about this orchestration layer. So more and more companies are looking for these AI generalists who know enough about how AI systems work to, make them useful, but also need to put them together and orchestrate them in ways that no single tool or someone who just knows about one tool can necessarily do very effectively.
Hayden, you already shared something a little counterintuitive that might surprise folks, that you're seeing more opportunities, not less, as a result of AI. Any other narratives out there with respect to AI in the economy that you think that media or talking heads or whatever is kind of getting wrong? Like, again, you have this very interesting vantage point. You have the receipts of what's happening with jobs and roles. What else are folks getting wrong? You wish, like, I just want to debunk this misinformation.
The debate often feels really binary, Jeff, and I think that's a mistake. I think that's a disservice to all of us. So you hear, factions out there saying, jobs are going to be wiped out, software development's going to be gone in 12 months, whatever these prognostications are that are very dire. And then there's kind of the Pollyannish, like, no, but this is just going to be net new. The reality is definitely in between. There are going to be winners and losers. There's no doubt. But the real question is the pace at which we can help reskill and transition people from the old to the new, and the pace at which businesses can transition. Because I think there's a confusion that happens between the pace of technology change and the pace of business adoption.
Totally.
Yes, the technology is moving super fast, capabilities are enhancing, but I talk to these companies every day, and it's hard. Like we were talking about, it's hard to make these changes. It's hard to evolve your systems. It's hard to get the right talent. We're democratizing that access to AI talent for small businesses, but there's still work that they've got to do to, go down this path. And so businesses can only move so fast. And I think that is actually a blessing, because it creates a little bit more time and a little bit more buffer for workers to reskill, to learn new things, to adapt. And we see that happening all across our platform where, there's AI categories of work that are growing, but we look at every category on our platform, and it is becoming AI powered, AI enhanced. So it's a freelancer and an AI agent or AI tools working together to create way more value than what they could do, individually, either one of them. In fact, we've studied this at length, and we have an index we put out this because we call it the HAPPY Index, the Human and AI Productivity Index. And it actually shows that AI tools can do very little on their own, but when you put humans working with them, their results increase by 70% or more. So I think this binary narrative of like AI winners, AI losers, and nothing in between is not true. In fact, every job is going to be AI enhanced. Every worker is going to be AI powered. But there is going to be net new opportunity that's very exciting. And we just need to kind of get people over that bridge and kind of cross that hurdle as it's coming.
You mentioned a very important word earlier, reskill and retraining. What do you think it will take to make that happen in mass? Like, what advice do you have, I guess, for leaders and businesses to internally reskill? And if you're open to it, I'm just curious for your broader thoughts on, as a society, what can we, I am someone who is generally, with certain reservations, generally optimistic about the long-term impacts, but also I think there will be a very profound and for many painful transition period. And I'm skeptical, concerned that that we can get our act together as a larger society to make this happen in kind of a graceful, frictionless, painless way. So I'd love to hear about kind of what advice you have for companies. And then if you're open to it, what are your thoughts for more macro societal level of how we'll be able to kind of like to reskill enough workers so that more people are taking advantage of the opportunities and thriving with AI and not feeling the pain?
Yeah. Some big topics there, Jeff. So let's get into it.
We wanted to peel it back.
I love it. Because these are the issues of the day, and we're in a moment of time that is very early in a transition that is going to be ongoing for many years. We can see that now. And, in an ideal world, sure, we might dream of, government and the private sector and education working hand in hand to solve this problem. Like you, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But what I can say is there are some very interesting green shoots of opportunity and hope for both businesses that are trying to solve these upskilling challenges and for talent. So the ones that we see from our vantage point on the business side, I think a lot of CEOs feel caught between an expensive upskilling initiative where they have to really invest in their existing workforce and hope that 6 months from now or 2 years from now, that workforce will have evolved to be fully fit for purpose for this new economy. Or the idea of mass replacement, say, I'm not going to reskill these people. I'm going to go into the economy and find new ones who have what I'm looking for. And both of those choices are very challenged. There is another path. A lot of companies are coming to platforms like ours and actually looking for AI experts who can both come in and sit alongside their existing teams to do two things. One is help upskill and train them like in the path of work. So not going off to some webinar or seminar, but really just sitting there and saying, look, here's how we can adapt and use tools in the systems today or change your job today using these things and really help kind of ride along and educate them. And at the same time, the benefit that businesses get is not just helping train their workforce, but also changing the systems because they're coming in with an actual mandate to evolve, a tech stack or evolve an accounting system or whatever. And so these freelance teams can come in, sit kind of for weeks or months with internal employees, help upskill and evolve both the team and the system, and then move on to the next project. And businesses have access to a lot more of this resource, again, through platforms like ours than they even realize. And that can be a great alternative to kind of going one way or the other in terms of like just focus on skilling or just focus on replacement. For workers, the good news is we've already seen, even pre-COVID, this huge rise in the demand and appetite from workers for flexible and contingent work. They actually want to work on their own terms. They do not want to be all of mankind does not want to be 9 to 5 in the office, doing what someone tells them to do. A lot of people want more independence and autonomy. And so as that has been kind of this rising trend, more than 52% of Gen Z now are freelancing. So every successive younger generation of workforce has figured out this is a great path for me and it gives me actually more financial freedom and independence. as more and more workers are embracing a different way of working on their own terms, that actually gives them access to a much faster learning path because they're often exposed to different problems in different businesses, working on a bunch of different technology stacks, et cetera, that actually force them to learn on the job. When I talk to freelancers, they say, what I love about Upwork is I can get paid all the time for all the work I do. And I'm constantly challenged and learning because I'm exposed to all kinds of different types of work that I wasn't getting in my stale, whatever company I was working at before. And so on-the-job learning is actually something that we need to, I think, really embrace in the next era of work because things are moving too fast to keep sending people back to school. Instead, embracing an economy that's flexible like the freelance economy and lets people learn as they go is actually a great way to keep millions of people moving forward on that train and staying relevant and earning for their families while they do that.
It's funny. In multiple futurists I've interviewed in this podcast before, I've asked them to kind of describe their future of work, their vision. And they've mentioned fractional jobs. It's inevitable that, as you mentioned, Hayden, it's already been a trend before AI. But with AI, one went so far as say the average person might have like 4 or 5 fractional jobs. And the idea of you are going to work, you're going to the factory for 25 years. Like we are so far that's so done and dusted. Let's go from the absurdly macro to the micro here. What industries and what job types and what maybe workflows are you seeing the biggest impact with AI? Are there particular roles that like you're seeing a lot more fractionalization and kind of AI infused opportunities? Is it more junior, more senior? Is there any kind of industry that pops out as like where a lot of this action is happening?
I think the interesting thing that we see on our platform is how broad-based the AI kind of integration into work is becoming. And so I'll give you an example that is probably not the one you would think I would answer the question around, which is authoring and illustration. For example, I was looking at a bunch of jobs that happen on Upwork around book illustration. And as you hear what people are looking for, there was like one person who was like, please, I want to hire a watercolorist to illustrate my book, and I do not want AI. And then you read the next 25 job posts from other clients, and they're all like, hey, I need somebody who can use AI for these images, or someone else, I want to build a system where someone can put in prompts and get illustrations for their book back. I mean, the work is changing at such an atomic level, even in fields like, illustration. And that's just one example, Jeff. Yeah. I think every category, whether it's engineering, customer support, language and translation, those jobs now have become model training jobs, essentially. The work has changed, but the workers are still there, bringing their skills to the table every single day. So I think it's more about, in any industry, there will be radical change in terms of what the work entails and how AI shows up, but it's going to touch everything. And it's already touched. From what we can see, it is already touching everything in the freelance economy. And I think that is going to trickle through to the full-time economy undoubtedly as we keep going.
I'd love your thoughts on what the future of work will look like down the road, like not a year out, but like 5 years out, or hell, let's have some fun, 10 years out. I'm sure you saw last year, Microsoft share their vision of the frontier firm, right? And I believe there are 3 phases. And the third phase is the idea of there's like swarms of AI agents that are doing all these different tasks. You might have an agent who is managing this team of agents, and there's a human kind of overseeing things. So we might have, and I've talked to other futurists and experts who are envisioning, you'll have like human beings, you'll have like, Jill and Bob and Sandeep, and then they're in a Zoom call with their 5 AI agents and digital twins and so on. And like, it kind of makes your head explode to think about all these possibilities. You are someone who gives more thought than 99.999% of humanity of what jobs and work is, how it's evolving, what it looks like. Where do you see us headed? What do you think that the workplace will look like as AI becomes more and more part of our lives in 5-10 years?
It is going to be radically different. And I love the visions that you shared, from some of these other folks, because I think there's a lot of truth to it. I would highlight 2 things. It is like totally clear to me that in the future of work, it is still going to be a profoundly human-centered experience, especially if we get it right. If we get it right, humans, A, will still have a big role to play, and B, the work will be revolving around making the humans better, not just, autonomy happening for autonomy's sake.
Mm-hmm.
So there is going to be this very human-centered future where I think the role of humans will be orchestration. And you talked a little about that with some of the visions you shared. Really the 10x contributor is someone who can not just do the work of one or two people or, orchestrate one or two agents, but really can orchestrate 10 or 15 agents because they have the capability to get so much leverage from all of these tools and systems at once. So I think that's where we are going in terms of being orchestrators of agents, and every individual contributor at some level will be doing that work and will be valued for it. But the other piece, and we already see signs of this right now, Jeff, is coming back to the human part. People's skills will be valued for the uniquely human things that people can do that AI cannot do.
Yeah.
And we're going to really see, I think, some separation and articulation of that. We already started seeing this last year on Upwork, where for the first time, employers started saying, look, I care less about technical skills. I actually want someone who's creative. I want someone who's a problem solver, has great judgment. These are things that are uniquely human that AI agents cannot so far replicate.
Completely
and
agree.
I think it's going to be a long time until they can. Someone who can show empathy in the right ways with working with colleagues, with connecting systems, like doing all these things. So there's going to be a premium on these human skills and a focus on what those are as very distinct, valued, aspects of what workers bring to the table that is very augmentative to what AI can do.
A pet theory of mine along those lines is that in the future, this could be the revenge of philosopher students and philosophy majors, right? Because when I was in college, like 20 million years ago, it's kind of like a running joke. Okay, every philosophy major is eventually a lawyer, right? Like, what else will you do?
Totally.
Or either a professor or a lawyer. But as more companies like, oh, we need AI ethics. We need someone to help us with AI governance. It needs someone who's very fluent in Hobbes
right.
and Kant and Bentham. They're the ones we call in. Any other predictions of how AI will change the job market or the economy or the world?
If we get it right, I think it will be a great equalizer, really helping, people who maybe didn't have the access to capital to start the business of their dreams, or didn't have access to, a social network that could help them get an idea off the ground, things like that. Suddenly, with these tools that are relatively inexpensive and very powerful, using the intelligence and automation that it gives them, I think there's so much more that we as humanity can do. And honestly, I think we're far from having that so-called Uber moment of, the new concepts of what is even possible, the new aspirations being put to the test and being developed by businesses at scale that impact all of us. But this is, I think, there's a huge opportunity for so much innovation from so many corners of the world. And we're going to see some incredible ideas and businesses that impact all of our lives that we didn't even dream of a few years ago, but in retrospect will seem obvious. And I'm excited for that.
Love it. Love it. Last couple of questions for you, Hayden. What advice do you have for those who are starting out in their career or maybe on the early phase of their journey and they want to make themselves still be relevant in the workforce going forward? You mentioned leaning into humanity. Great advice. On top of that, how else should folks think about their career in this new AI landscape?
There's a talk track out there that early career individuals, are really at risk with this AI era. And I have an opposite point of view. I would say to those folks, you have a huge advantage. Clearly, you grew up digitally native as a basic. On top of that, you're early in your career and you can learn these tools while your brain is extremely plastic and you have fewer than the rest of us preconceived notions about how work should happen, and therefore can be very creative and impactful in designing how it will happen. So I think there's a great opportunity for these folks to, embrace this technology. Don't be intimidated. Get experimental because, again, this is very accessible stuff that you can be hands-on with yourself and start to learn. You don't need to go to some, fancy school and get credentialed in it. And I think that will make you, that creativity and plasticity will make you very valuable to employers now and going forward. So I'd say there's some real value for younger workers coming in or early in their career. And then my perennial advice for them is go work on things you're curious about, because you will be great if you're curious and leaned in. You will not be as great if you're bored and don't want to, show up every day. So find those things that at least spark your curiosity and just like get really deep in them.
As a host of AI Curious, I heartily co-sign that. Heartily co-sign that. And then on the flip side, Hayden, what advice do you have for business leaders on how to effectively implement AI and do it in a responsible, human-focused way?
I mean, the best leaders are figuring out that it's about the tools and the people, and you have to look at both together. And again, it doesn't have to be as hard or as binary as I think some of these choices may seem. You can start small, you can bring in experts, you can do a pilot with the right people working with the technology and start to see those benefits, and then build confidence and build buy-in and build impact from there. And so I think it's about, starting with that idea of what is the right tool and who are the people that would need to work with that tool or work in this workflow. And, from there, it really opens up.
Awesome. Final question for you. How are you personally using AI in your own life, whether for work hacks and productivity hacks, or for funsies, for just, on the weekend doing fun stuff?
Oh my gosh. So many examples. So I'll give you a quick personal one. My parents were visiting the other weekend, and my dad and my mom I kind of came home from work. I said, "How was your day?" My mom said, "Well, I spent most of the morning editing your dad's memoirs, or, the stories he had written about, aspects of his life." And she looked pretty tired from this. She was kind of worn down. I said, "Guys, have you thought about AI for that?" And so I taught my parents how to use Claude as an editor on my dad's memoirs.
Amazing.
And literally in 24 hours, Jeff, it was like, my dad was dancing out the door. He was like, "I can't believe it." And my mom's like, "Great, I'm liberated. I don't have to do this editorial job." So it was like winning for both of them. And, it was just so fun to see my, 80 plus year old parents getting real value from the technology.
Love it.
On a personal note, I mean, I use this stuff for everything, for learning, for, not having a blank sheet of paper to start something, to get a prompt going. I get some ideas from AI. There's just so many places where I feel like it's kind of enabling my workflow. But I'd say learning is probably the biggest one. One of the fun areas.
Sorry, can you unpack it a little bit when you say learning? Do you have a back and forth with Claude?
Yes.
Tell me a bit about how kind of an example of
I will have deep conversations with, and I kind of go through different, sometimes it's OpenAI, Claude, I sometimes do side-by-side, Gemini, I'm using more now, but about things like pricing strategy, or about random things like, oh, there's an SEC rule about this. What is that? And how does it apply to our business? Or, we're thinking about, changing how we operate in this market. What should I know? So going very deep, it can be sometimes like a quick, learning tutorial, or it can be something very deep, like multi-hour, multi-day interactions around something that I'm just trying to get up to speed at or think about in a different way. So that's been super valuable. I also have this fun thing I like to do on Fridays where my team sends me their weekly updates on Fridays, and quite often I load them into Notebook LM. And then on my drive home, I listen to, the kind of version of what's happening at Upwork internally, but as discussed by two podcast hosts.
In a very upbeat, kind of chipper way. Oh, it's great.
It puts such a different slant on things, things that I'm just living and breathing and this is blah, blah. And then there are these commentators well, this is so fascinating. And we're really seeing the bleeding edge of, and I'm how interesting to look at our work.
We are doing pretty great. Yeah.
It's pretty fun to kind of get a different spin on what can otherwise feel like kind of just the mundane day to day.
What a great note to end on. I think if nothing else, listeners should take that advice, and at the end of your week, pump in your weekly update to Notebook LM and have just be regaled with how great your team is. I love that so much.
It's pretty funny.
Hayden, thank you so much. Congrats on what all of you guys have done this past year. Really exciting to see all of the AI adoption and see kind of your perspective on AI. You give, I think, a lot of cause for optimism here. So really enjoy speaking to you. Thank you so much, and best of luck going forward.
Awesome. Great talking to you, Jeff. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Thanks again to Hayden Brown, the CEO of Upwork. Thank you to our producer, Jasper Chua. And thank you to you, dear listener. If this is your first time at AI Curious, please consider subscribing. We're at all the usual suspects, including Apple and Spotify and YouTube. Send it to a friend, rate it 5 stars, all that good stuff. Thanks again, and see you next time.